I do like to help women through the mental connection between exercise and nutrition are for weight loss. Instead, reframe it to these are for my health. And I'm just going to make them a baseline habit in my day so that I can be healthier and stronger and all of that. So having that disconnect between weight and exercise and diet and connect it with just overall health and well-being. I think that's a huge thing.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you are stepping into who you are meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to the show. Today I have on this show Megan Bliss. Megan Bliss is a nurse practitioner, and she is an expert in hormones and weight management. And we are talking all about hormones today, and specifically talking about that pre-menopause stage of life. Not to say that if you aren't pre-menopause, you won't get a lot out of this episode, because you will. But she really talks about how she used her story of being this exhausted mom who didn't have all the tools to figure out what was going on with her body, because she was trying to help her patients with the exact same things that she was struggling with the energy and the weight and all the things that come with hormonal imbalances, and getting to the root cause of it. And, I like a good conversation about the root cause. And that's what we're going to talk about today, about the role that our hormones play in our health, how we can really recognize when our hormones are off, and just the basic things you can start doing now to balance things out. And when diet and exercise aren't enough, because I know many of y'all listening, I've had conversations with some of y'all, and I know that that's a struggle for so many women. You're doing all the things, you're doing the diet, the exercise, and it's just not enough. So Megan's going to talk about that and exactly what you can do to get your hormones pushing in the right direction. So let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Megan, and we're talking all things hormones today. And I like this. We were talking just before we hopped on, because we've talked about perimenopause and we talked about menopause, but I feel like this conversation is going to kind of go in the other end of the hormonal spectrum. And so I think we can cover all of the ladies by the time we're done here today. So I'm excited about this chat with you, Megan. Thanks so much for hopping on with me.
Well, thanks for having me. I love chatting about hormones. So
yes,
happy here.
This is perfect then. You're in the right place. Okay, so I feel like we have to start with your story, though, because you are the hormone expert here, but you've come to this part of wellness for a reason, kind of from your story. So can you share a little bit about how you got into this realm of wellness and why you chose this hormone path?
Yeah, so I was in my mid to late 20s feeling absolutely terrible. And I was a nurse practitioner. I was seeing patients, and these younger women were coming to me saying, I'm exhausted. I am irritable. I have no patience with my kids. I am gaining weight, or I'm trying. I am exercising. I'm dieting, all of that. And I cannot lose a thing. And I would be like, yeah, nodding my head. I get you, because guess what? I was there too. And I was supposed to, they were coming to me because they were trusting me to help them. And I would run every conventional lab that I could research and Google and everything. And there's really not a lot of hormonal health education that's taught in traditional schooling.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was missing something. I knew I was missing a piece, not only for them, but for me, because I felt absolutely terrible. And I was like, I have got to get this figured out so that not only I can help these women who are trusting me with what they're going through, but also to help myself so that I can stay afloat, because I really felt like I was drowning at that point in my life. And anything that you find is oh yeah, we don't worry about hormones until, after menopause or whatever. And no, it's not hormones that are the issue. Just go home and diet and exercise, or, just go to sleep on time.
That should fix it.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
Just fixing everything. So I just felt like there was something missing. And then when I finally found some education modalities that were helping me understand hormones better, I was like, okay, we've got something now.
Yeah. I love that. So what did you find when looking at the women who were coming to you with all the same things that you were dealing with? What did you find were the biggest pieces that they were missing?
Definitely, I think specialty testing is huge because if you're using general lab work, the ranges are too wide and not specific enough for what particularly younger women are experiencing too, because those ranges are so wide,
Right.
And so I feel like the specialty testing was huge. And then what was coming back to me is, they are having a significant lack of progesterone is a big one, or they're struggling with that estrogen dominance. A lot of them are. And then there's the cortisol imbalances in there as well.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm glad you brought up the ranges. I was just talking about this to somebody yesterday because I feel like when you go get like the conventional testing done and you're looking at the ranges, it's basically like, well, you're not dead. So you're okay.
Right.
Like it's not like, how about we want to look at optimal health? Like, how about we don't just want to be not dead?
Well, and this is what I was explaining to somebody earlier today. I was talking with a client and it's like, I have been told that, everything's fine, everything's normal for so long. And it's like, yeah, everything is normal, but to their standards, and it's common, but really we should be looking at optimal health. It's not like we should wait until there's this big advanced disease process before we do something about it, because why wait until, and that's the way that the standard model of care is you got to wait until there's a diagnosis, a disease to implement a protocol.
Exactly.
And I don't believe in that. Like, get ahead before it's at this terrible disease process.
Right. Totally. Well, I mean, and that's part of the problem, right? Because people wait until they have the diagnosis or whatever. And then by that time, there's like 20 things wrong instead of just one. So now you have this complex thing that you have to tackle.
Or you're chasing symptoms. Exactly. You're chasing like depression, anxiety, all of this stuff that really, had we just started at getting your hormonal health in control, you would have avoided having to be on these medications or whatever.
Yep, for sure. So when you're looking at kind of addressing these imbalances that are in play, what are kind of some of the first steps that people can take? Because I like looking at this, like you're talking about kind of the pre-menopausal stage, right? We're looking at those imbalances there. So what are some of the first things that you have these ladies doing to kind of start pushing them in the right direction?
Yeah, I really feel like that identification of, okay, what is actually happening can be a huge critical component, but there's those foundational things that we as women need. We've got to have movement in our lives, which I totally resisted that for a very long time. And I hated exercise and all of that. And I thought exercise was about vanity because that's the way my mother's generation saw things. And so getting moving was a huge aspect for me. Also, I am a recovering picky eater. So I did not like to eat vegetables. And so kind of getting over that mentality was a big kicker for me, was making sure I'm nourishing my body with things that my body needs before I dive into the wants that I want. Do I still have treats? You bet I do still have treats, but giving it the things that it needs first. So, and then making sure I'm getting adequate sleep. I was a chronic, okay, my kids are in bed, I can finally have some alone time.
Right.
And then, binge watch an entire series of Netflix and then wonder why I'm exhausted the next day. But then I also had a hard time falling asleep because I had progesterone issues in there too. So I was just stuck in this vortex. So definitely making sure I'm getting sleep, making sure I'm nourishing my body, moving my body. And then stress does play a big role in our hormones, but we're women, like we're juggling 500 plates at the same time. It's not like we can be like, okay, I'm going to sell the kids and send the husband to daycare. And, it's not like I can stop these plates from being in my life. And, many of us work as well. So it's like, I can't take away those type of stressors, but I should be able to handle them, and I should be able to cope. Yeah, they're going to get to me sometimes when it's a lot, but I call it the tolerate crap threshold. When your hormones are out of whack, it just brings that I can tolerate crap threshold way down. So it does not take much to tip me over into being like this overstimulated, overwhelmed mom. And so when hormones are balanced, that tolerate crap threshold raises so that it's like, there's a mess in the living room. Okay. Oh, well, let's just pick it up instead of losing it on my kid. you
right.
know?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think there's kind of I don't know if stigma is the right word, but there's like this perception that like when you start on this healing journey, then like everything is better. Like you're fixing everything and everything's going to be perfect forever. But it's like, we're still human. So it's really like you're saying, it's it's just fixing that threshold where we're able to tolerate more. We're building more resiliency so we can tolerate more and our body doesn't freak out at like the slightest change in our environment.
Right. 100%. Yeah. And that's something that I have to talk with the people that I work with is it's like, it's not going to happen overnight,
Right.
or it might be subtle. It just might be that you're feeling more normal. And so
Right.
you don't really notice it until you reflect back. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I have not yelled at my entire family in like a month.
Right.
That's amazing.
Things are changing. It's so true. It's so true. So for those who, because I like you said it, and that's like, I mean, I think like every woman in my world that I work with, they have the whole like, oh, my doctor said my labs were normal, like that whole thing. So how do you address that? Because you coming from kind of the conventional like healthcare system as a nurse practitioner, how do you help women address that? Because obviously advocating for yourself is a big thing, but advocating for yourself when your doctor is like convincing you like, no, your labs are normal and you're totally fine. Like, how do you help women kind of through that piece?
Yeah. And that's where I think having other people in your toolbox can be your primary care provider. And this is coming from being on the professional side of things too. Primary care providers they have to know a little about like everything. And they cannot know everything when it comes to women's health. And they know what they know. And I wish it was taught more. Oh, okay. So you feel like it's your hormones. Okay, here's a hormone specialist I can send you to, or something like that. You know, so I've really tried to foster a good relationship with primary care providers so that I can be a resource for them and maybe a referral. So then they are being helpful, but they're also staying in their wheelhouse, what they're comfortable with, what they are knowledgeable about, what they're passionate about, you know, because most are not passionate about hormones like I am. It definitely takes having a passion about it. So I feel like coming from that understanding that I wish they would just know that it's out there and then know who to turn to. And that's for me. There's certain things that I'm not comfortable with that I'm like, hey, but I have a friend who I can send you to. Right. And then, yes, being an advocate for yourself, you know, you can be like, okay, so all my labs are normal, but I'm feeling this way. And I just really feel like something deeper is in there. What's my next step? Like, is there somewhere that I can turn to, or something deeper that I can look into? That's another good thing. And then because it was so frustrating, I decided to take my services virtually and help women everywhere because I was like, I don't know, like it's got to be available. And with the virtual world, you should be able to have access to what you need.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. 100%. Do you find in your world, I feel like you're probably more connected just because you came from that space. Do you find more, and this is just your own personal experience, do you find more doctors? Because I would love that, like you're saying, like that would be the ideal model, right? Like you have your primary care physician or your OB or whatever, and they know what they know in that realm, right? But then, hey, this comes along, oh, maybe you should go see this person about your thyroid or your hormones or your gut or whatever. Are you finding that there are more doctors doing that? Or are you finding that still isn't just quite hitting the mark yet?
It's not quite there, which is why I love social media because you can get into like, you know, the little corner of the algorithm that is the way you're feeling. And then you're like, oh, there are people out there. Yes. But I have worked a lot with primary care providers and people all over, and we collaborate care. And that's awesome. And a lot are willing. There are those stubborn ones that have some ego and don't believe in this type of healthcare, but I think it's growing. I think the knowledge about hormone health and gut health and all of that is expanding, and at least they're knowing that there's places to turn.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I think, like you said, I mean, social media obviously is a help there, but I think more people are willing to like kind of open that Pandora's box to allow more collaboration. Like you said, I know there's always going to be some resistance, but yeah, I think if we can collaborate in a way where it's not like, because I think that's the problem. I think part of it is like, I'm not telling you that I'm smarter than you. I'm just saying that I know more about this specific topic. than you. You know what I mean?
Like
I think
I'm no longer studying which antibiotics cover which type of bacteria. That is not anything that I am studying anymore. I study day in, day out hormone processes, detoxification, genetics, all of that. That's my wheelhouse and where I can devote most of my attention.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And being able to connect the dots. Like, okay, this person specializes. I think we're getting there. The other thing I wanted to ask you was about the weight thing, because I know and I literally, before we got on this call, I had a call with one of my clients and she's postmenopausal. So it's a different, period of life, but the weight thing is what gets women the most. Right. And like you were saying, you talk to women, the women you work with, and you, when you started out, it's like, I'm doing the exercise, I'm doing the diets, like I'm doing all the things. But as you know, because you've been there too, like that's not really the whole equation. Like it's really not enough for certain things that go on with our hormones. So when women are looking at that weight piece, what are some things that they're missing? What are some things to look at when it like the weight is not moving and I'm doing all the things?
Yeah. And it is a struggle. It's a struggle. But I do like to help women through the mental connection between exercise and nutrition are for weight loss. Instead, reframe it to these are for my health. And I'm just going to make them a baseline habit in my day so that I can be healthier and stronger and all of that. So having that disconnect between weight and exercise and diet and connect it with just overall health and well-being. I think that's a huge thing. But yes, our hormones 100% do affect our weight. And if I could just go out there and hug every single woman that has struggled with this and who has joined a gym or an exercise program or done a trendy diet or whatever, and they did not lose a single pound, I just want to go up and hug them and be like, keep going. There is more to look at. There is more to look at than just following a trendy diet or exercise program or something like that. If you are not making progress with those foundational habits, then it's time to dive in more to your hormones and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so what are the typical factors that you see that are, I'm using air quotes here, that are off for women that are having, what specifically are you finding in the labs that's causing this kind of stubborn weight situation?
Yeah. And that varies as well. It can be a myriad of them. Elevated cortisol affects our weight and can make you so frustrated and retain water and increase your weight, all of that stuff. So high cortisol is one of the things that I'm noticing a lot. Then there is the estrogen dominance realm that when women have too much estrogen circulating and or you're not able to detoxify it adequately, a lot of times those little extra estrogen molecules can go park on the thyroid receptor sites and make it so that, your metabolism is a little bit slower. So that tends to happen to women who are, younger or perimenopausal, all of that kind of frame. But then there's the menopausal women too, who when they have estrogen deficiency, your brain, your bones, everything is starving for estrogen. And then your body goes, where can I produce more estrogen? Fat cells. So I'm going to hang on to every single fat cell there ever was because I need more estrogen. And so there's that too. And then there's testosterone that will do it too. You can't, not enough testosterone. You can't build muscle to make your metabolism go higher. And then too much testosterone, that PCOS situation can increase your blood sugar and insulin resistance can happen, which then that can cause that cascade of weight gain. So it's definitely multifactorial in there.
Yeah. There's a lot. Well, and like you said, I think it all goes back to doing the testing so you can really see what's going on and not just kind of guess and assume this is what's happening.
Well, and that's the thing is a lot of hormonal symptoms will intertwine. Like I see a lot of estrogen dominant symptoms and low thyroid symptoms. They intertwine. And so a lot of women will be told, your thyroid's normal. You're fine. Go home, you know, deal with it. And really, if we did some testing and could see that there's actually some estrogen dominance happening, which is affecting the thyroid, but the levels are all normal. Right. So the testing can be a huge, huge thing.
For sure. Because then you also run into is it estrogen dominance because my progesterone is super low or is it actual, like there's so many factors. And then it's like, do you need to just address the progesterone or the estrogen? So there's so many factors that play. And I think that's the other piece too, where it's because you use the Dutch test, I'm assuming, with your.
I use a couple different ones.
Yeah.
I love the Dutch test, but then I also use a salivary testing so I love both of them and use them different on different women. So
yeah. It's just so much more comprehensive. And I try to get that point across to people. Like when you're looking at functional labs versus just the conventional labs, like you're looking at things from such a deeper level and you're getting so much more data than just doing the blood panel where your doctor's like, oh, your estrogen levels are fine,
Yep, exactly. It's huge. And it's worth it. It's they're investments. They are, but they are worth it. And I think every woman can benefit from having a good gauge on where their hormones are at least every 5 years if they're feeling phenomenal. And then more often if they're not feeling phenomenal.
Definitely. So what are some things for somebody listening who's like, I don't know, are my hormones out of whack? Are there signs? And I know this is like a very broad question and it can be a bazillion things, but just I kind of narrowing them down to maybe the top few, the things to look for where you're like you're saying, like, okay, if somebody's thinking like on the fence about getting their, getting a lab or whatever, things to look for where they could be like, okay, yeah, I should get a lab.
Yeah. Exhaustion is one of them. Some energy levels is a big thing. Mood issues, whether it's depression, anxiety, or irritability, something like that. So some mood issues is another one. Weight gain, like we've been chatting about, that's a big one. But then there's those like a little bit more inconspicuous things that's going to be like itchy skin, itchy ears, skin rashes, joint pain can be a big factor in there as well. So, but I like to, a lot of women, they won't do anything for themselves.
Yes.
We are very self-sacrificing until it hits our billboard symptoms. I call them billboard symptoms. And those are the things that actually other people can see. I mean, obviously, periods being a wreck, whether absent or too much, we know our hormones are probably out of whack, but we ignore it because nobody else can see that. We keep it within us. And then our mood stuff, nobody else can see it. Some people might experience it, but nobody else can see it. But when it starts affecting the things that people can actually see, like our skin, our weight, hair falling out, or hair being dry and brittle, that type of stuff, those are the ones that tend to finally push women to do something for themselves and dive into things further. So, but I would say do it before it gets to the billboard symptoms. Let's tackle things before then.
Well, yeah. I mean, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. I mean, once you wait until like the big symptoms are showing up, then you've got 28 things that you have to address now instead of the just, maybe one or two. So yeah, proactive is key there.
Yeah.
Okay. So for women who maybe want to do some work on, on their own to help balance things out, are there things, maybe a few things that you could tell women to do now to kind of start naturally balancing hormones out?
Yeah, I would say making sure you're getting vegetables and protein with every single meal so that you can keep your blood sugar stable. It helps you get your micro and macronutrients so that you can connect the dots on all the hormone communication pathways. So that's a big one. Making sure you're going to sleep at a reasonable hour and have a good bedtime routine. And I worked night shifts for a lot of years. So I also get that there's those people out there. I mean, the night shift is unavoidable for some people, but making sure you're getting enough sleep is a big factor. And then moving your body every single day. And that's not going like crazy with exercise because that can actually hinder your hormones too. But just making sure that you're moving your body, you're strength training, and you are being intentional with your movement every single day. Just even those things can be so, so helpful. But then you could also go to switching my period care products and not using traditional pads and tampons because they have a lot of chemicals in them that affect our hormones. So I have, hundreds and hundreds of testimonials in my DMs of I simply switched from pads and tampons to a menstrual cup or disc or whatever. And my periods are so much better. So yeah, those are simple things.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a huge one we haven't touched on are all those endocrine disruptors, right? That actually I think that's such an underestimated piece of it that people don't understand exactly how much they affect.
Oh, they do. Right? And that's something that I actually ignored for a long time because I was like, I'm not really much of a product wearer. I don't wear a ton of makeup and I don't use lotions and that type of stuff. So like, I was like, I just like brushed it aside for a while. You know, I was like, I'll conquer that when I get to it.
Right.
But most women slather so much on our skin on a day-to-day basis. And then our shampoos, conditioners are what we're washing our hands with. Our, like I said, our period care products, they all really do affect our hormones and can play a big role in our hormonal health.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. What other ones? Do you have any other like swaps, I guess, since we're talking about this? You have any other swaps that you can recommend that like really make a difference for the women that you work with?
Oh, let's see here. I would say toothpaste is a big one too.
That is a good one. Yep.
Yeah, because that fluoride in toothpaste, and this is funny because my grandpa is probably rolling in his grave because he was a dentist for.
He's like, you can't say that.
And so who grew up on fluoride,
totally,
fluoride, all of that.
Yes.
And guess what? Family has a lot of thyroid issues.
No.
Hey. Yeah, our family does. But I also get like needing good oral help,
of course,
too, you know. Right. But switching from fluoride toothpaste can be a big thing because it competes with the iodine and bromine at the receptor sites. And then you're just not, you could have all normal levels, but it can't actually execute because of that fluoride.
Yep. Such a good one. That's a big one. And I've been talking with this to a few people lately. I feel like, I don't know if it's that I'm just seeing, it's one of those things where you're just seeing it more because you're aware of it, or if it's actually coming out more. But I've been seeing more and more people on like different podcasts and articles and stuff talking about the fluoride piece and talking about how toxic it is. I really don't think people understand because it messes up other things too. Like it can mess with your gut and that kind of thing. But I really don't think people can understand because it's such a natural thing at the dentist. They, you know, do you want the fluoride rinse? And then in your toothpaste and you want the fluoride, you know, it's such a common thing. I don't really think people understand how much it affects your body.
Yeah. But I think it's until you can attach it to what they're experiencing, you know, like especially metabolism, you know, this can legitimately affect your metabolism. That toothpaste can. And I mean, there's a lot of people who are like, well, my dentist will yell at me if I tell them, you know, and it's like, okay, if you're worried about it there, just worry about what you can at home, you know, and that day in, day out exposure.
Right. Exactly.
And that's a great step forward until you're able to feel confident in saying, and now we're going to pass on the fluoride.
Right. Exactly. No, that's a big one. I love that. So, okay, y'all go check your toothpaste, read the ingredients, and then go change out your tampons and stuff. There you go. Those are two big tips that we're going to leave you with. I love it. Okay. So I have another question I want to ask you as we're wrapping up here. But before I ask you that, can you let everybody know where they can find out more about you, where you hang out, and where they can learn more about what you do to help women in their hormones?
Yeah, I've got a website, meganbliss.com, that I put all my resources, ways to work with me there. I also have a hormone symptom checklist at checkhormones.com. So, you know, we brushed over some symptoms a few minutes ago, but if you want to look and see, oh, I fit more into this category, that's a great resource. My favorite social media platforms are going to be TikTok and Instagram, but I am on all the major social media platforms. I'm gearing up YouTube this year. I've got a whopping 80 subscribers. So if you want to go help me,
you got to go subscribe.
I head on over there, but it's just Megan Bliss NP, and as in Nancy P, on all these platforms.
Perfect. Of course, I have all the links to that in the show notes for y'all. So last question as we finish up, a question I like to finish with everybody. What do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Ooh, I really feel if you are taking care of yourself, you are less self-centered. Because when you feel terrible, all you can think about is how you are feeling because it's so present, you know, and so if you can take care of yourself, it better helps you take care of other people. So then you're not because I remember when I felt terrible, it was like, oh, well, I can't do that.
That's all you could think about.
It's all I could think about because I was so exhausted. And I was like, I can't even think about tackling one more thing. But now that I feel really, really good, I'm like, oh yeah, give me more. Let me do something. Like, get me out in the world. So
yes,
yeah.
yes, that's so true. I love that. And I think it's such a good lesson for women because, like you said earlier, we're like the best at self-sacrificing and playing the martyr, right? And understanding that the actual like selfless piece is taking care of yourself first. And that whole,
It really is. We hear it all the time, put on your own oxygen mask first, but really that's really hard to grasp. But really, if you are feeling terrible, you think about it constantly. And if you're feeling good, it's so much easier to think outside of yourself and be more productive and accomplish more and all of that. So it's actually a very selfless thing you can do is to take care of yourself.
I love it. It's such good advice and perfect advice to wrap up things. Thank you so much, Megan, for this and for
having me.
Letting women understand more about their hormones. And hopefully some women now are listening and they'll go get some testing done so they can start feeling better because that, and like you said, I mean, that's what it's feeling better lets you help everybody else. So I love it. Thanks so much, Megan.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I know how I can provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics that you want to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's at @thehopepedraza or visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.